has established measures in 3 areas: preventing and combating anti-Semitism, protecting and fostering Jewish life, education, research, and Holocaust remembrance. The Jewish Porto is very proud of its work and achievements in all these areas, including creating infrastructures for Jewish life, producing films on Jewish history, and building 2 museums, the Jewish Museum and the Holocaust Museum, which you'll visit tomorrow. These museums, particularly the Holocaust Museum, are visited by about 50,000 school students every year. And this makes a huge contribution to the education of youngsters about Judaism and to the prevention of anti-Semitism by upcoming generations. From these visits, we have sadly learnt that the age-old material view of Jews exists. And as mentioned, that with the growth of the Jewish community in Porto and Portugal over the last few years, unfortunately, anti-Semitism, which practically exists, is on the rise. But it's perhaps because of this notion, this age-old notion of the rich Jew, that governments often see the need to protect other minorities, but somehow forget the Jews. On this matter, I strongly recommend you read the book Jews Don't Count by David Badial. In the middle of all this, what has the Portuguese state's contribution been to our efforts, the efforts of the Jewish community of Porto? So far, absolutely nothing. The Jewish Museum, completed in 2019, never opened to the general public. The authority, incredibly, failed to recognize the need for policing a Jewish museum, policing that the community would have paid for. It's time for Portugal to avail itself of the funds that the EU is now making available, and at the very least support the cost of policing our museums, which provide a crucial free educational service. The community welcomes the recent appointment of Professor Pedro Bacelar Vasconcelos as Portugal's national coordinator for the EU strategy, whom I was hoping would be here to listen to my words, but apparently is not with us at the moment, and wishes him every success in ensuring the implementation of measures in all 3 areas. In particular, we hope that he will ensure the resolution of the issue I just mentioned and the adoption of measures to protect and foster Jewish life, which thankfully is once again thriving in this beautiful city of Porto. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, thank you for the microphone there. You were just talking about the EU, Dr. Michael Rothwell. I know, if I may, Maximilian Marco Katz, you had some thoughts on the EU yourself. Is there anything, would you like to come up and say a couple of words, and perhaps you would have something to respond to that? Thank you, Marco. The microphone is just right in front. There you go. Well, you can just pick it up, the microphone, because there we go.
Yeah. Okay. First of all, I thank you for me being here. Second, regarding the EU policies related to combating anti-Semitism. My name is Marco Maximilian Katz. I am the director of the Center for Monitoring and Combating Anti-Semitism in Romania, which was created 22 years ago. Basically, I followed up all what is happening, especially in Romania, and of course in the last years in Europe regarding this issue. As part of my activity, I participate at many conferences organized by the EU Commission on the matter. I am part of the committee that implements the national strategy put together in Romania for combating anti-Semitism. And also I was part of the group of people that initiated the creation of the national strategy. I will start by telling you something that happened in the last meeting in Brussels, last meeting of the EU Commission, where at a workshop, a young lady from Serbia representing organization of the Roma community asked very simple and to the point, should we give special attention to the anti-Semitism? Why should we speak about anti-Semitism all the time? These were the two questions that they were put exactly as I'm telling you. Of course, that I was quite surprised, and my answer was a 40 minutes lecture about why, and about Holocaust and so on, things that basically the young lady knew as well. But that issue brought to my attention a trend that is lately developing more and more, and I paid attention also in Romania during the meetings of the committee for implementing the national strategy, and that is I don't know if it's a plan, but there is a trend to mix the anti-Semitism with other forms of hate or other issues. In the last meeting in Brussels, there were various representatives of organizations dealing with LGBT issues, dealing with BLM issues, and they were all brought up in these workshops that we had. I don't know how many people paid attention to this fact, but I felt that somehow the anti-Semitism that was the main subject of this meeting got a little bit pushed away. I raised a question about it. And the moment that I raised a question about it, I did not get an answer, but I got a cough running away from the subject or around the tail. And that's why I wanted to bring this issue to your attention, because we see the Roma organizations which we work together, and the Roma organization learned from the Jewish organizations how to deal with the issue of the Holocaust. At one meeting in Romania, I was asked by a Roma activist, how come that you, the Jews, brought the whole issue of the Holocaust to the attention of the world, and we did? And that it's a valid question. But since that question, they learned how to do it. And because, and I'm giving you again the example of Romania, because in Romania, the Jewish community is very small and the Roma community is very large, then feel that in the commission dealing with the anti-Semitism, the Jews are somehow marginalized. Why I'm saying that? Because in one of the meetings, at a remark made by the representative of the Jewish Federation of the communities in Romania, somebody, and especially I avoid saying who, but somebody said very clearly on a microphone like this, do not teach us how to deal with the anti-Semitism. And he followed that remark with telling us, you are here as guests. So this is an issue that happened in a committee, interministerial committee, representing the government of Romania, and this actually brought to our attention that the political agenda it's far more important
Right.
and has a priority in combating anti-Semitism.
Marco, thank
Okay.
you very much.
Thank
I
you.
really appreciate it. It's a super interesting point. And in just before I go to Dr. Rothwell, your remarks are primarily why, not just because you've noticed the trend, Marco, which is appearing across Europe. This need to kind of throw anti-Semitism into the same pot, or bouillabaisse if you're French, with other forms of hate, Roma, LGBTQ, and whatever. And we saw some of that in the French plan, which is why, and I would encourage you, if you haven't already done so, have a look at the resolution we have to vote on later on, and those very issues are spoken about. This idea of decoupling anti-Semitism from this sort of central pot and this trend of attaching it to other issues. So thank you, Marco, for raising that. Dr. Rothwell, you have a microphone. I mean, you just spoke about it. We'll be as able because we have an awful lot to get through, but I want to give you the final word. You mentioned the community, Baruch Hashem, is self-sufficient. Do you have any anecdotal evidence that, or any experience in that other communities who maybe aren't in such an advantage and are being railroaded into this kind of intersectional arguments, or you know, that this need to include other groups when they're talking about their own experiences? Do you have anything on that?
Absolutely. I think that the National Coordinator's talk put that in perspective, that the romantic idea was given that there's no anti-Semitism in Portugal, and that what Portugal has to deal with is other kinds of racism and hate. And so all this relativization is the mainstream political position. Basically, the coordinator was saying he didn't really have anything to do. There's no anti-Semitism, and he's totally unaware of the fact that there are, as I mentioned briefly, a growing number of anti-Semitic incidents that have happened in Portugal over the last 10 years, and these are detailed in the final chapter of the book, which I hope you'll all take with you. And I'm not going into all the details now, but it's to say that there have been all sorts of very disagreeable incidents recently, and not only talking about painting, anti-Jewish graffiti, also what looked like an attempt to get somebody to have a fatal road accident, also an attempt to scare somebody into thinking they're being accused by the police of child pornography. So behind the scenes, there are lots of bad things going on in terms of developments of anti-Semitism in Portugal. And there's a problem of the authorities in coming to terms with this reality. They, as I say, for now, they're sticking with the traditional rosy picture, which was pretty accurate before the growth of the Jewish communities, that there's not really any anti-Semitism here in Portugal.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Roth. We're going to have to move quickly on, but I really wanted to once again express my great appreciation to you, not only for your partnership here, and also to Marco for raising that important intervention. Now, I know there are some other speakers. Madame Fajroles, you wanted to say très rapidement, si on peut. You might need your headphones again. Ou ici au coin du micro, si ça vous dérange pas. There might be one more question from Madame Fajroles. Yes, of course.
Oui, ça y est. OK. Donc sur ce sujet précisément, en France, la délégation ministérielle, elle travaille contre le racisme, contre l'antisémitisme et contre la haine anti-LGBT. Nous nous battons régulièrement pour maintenir la distinction et la spécification de la lutte contre le racisme. Néanmoins, par exemple, quand on fait des formations auprès des policiers et qu'on va travailler pour déconstruire les préjugés, pour dire que les personnes ne doivent être attaquées en fonction de son origine, en fonction de sa religion, en fonction de sa couleur de peau, ça a du sens de parler de la lutte contre l'antisémitisme et de la lutte contre toute autre forme de racisme. Il faut savoir les distinguer toujours, mais le fait, en tout cas nous en France, si on devait faire un service séparé, ça ne serait pas plus efficace. On n'aurait pas plus de moyens et on ne toucherait pas plus de monde. Donc, mais par contre, je sais, puisque la DILCRA représente la France dans les instances européennes, que nous sommes quasiment les seuls à tenir cette position. Voilà.
So thank you. So basically, Madame Fajoles was saying that it's always finely balanced to try and get. They have to bring in the other issues because it therefore enables it to reach a much wider audience. But and so that's if you like the payoff. By bringing in other groups, you get to a wider audience. But it's always this challenge of separating. And it wasn't really a question, actually. It was more of a comment. Please,
comment.
Sure.
I mean, in France, there are nobody will deny there are serious issues of anti-Semitism, and so that package makes sense. The problem here in Portugal is they're pretending there is no issue with anti-Semitism. It's a bit different.
Thank you, Dr. Rothwell. We're going to move straight on. I mean, Dr. Rothwell was mentioning there, you know, his museum bringing in a lot of young people. So it seems nice to segue straight from that back to France, indeed, and we have a presentation on that very issue of youth attitudes towards Jews in France. It gives me great pleasure to call up and present to you both Mr. Kevin Cohen, who's the president of UEGF, which is the French Jewish Students Federation at Sciences Po in Paris, and Monsieur Ruben Thiard, who is the national secretary of the same organization. They have a presentation for you. Voilà, ça va. Je vous laisse tranquille pour le moment. Pour le moment. Ça va.
Hi. 1, 2, ça fonctionne. Super.
Une dizaine de minutes.
Super. Voilà, super.
Voilà.
Hello. My name is Kevin Cohen. I am the president of Jewish Student Union in Paris. I'll try to speak English, but I mean, I will switch in French very quickly. Start to be ready to take your headphone. And I am with Ruben Thiard.
Hi, hello everybody. I'm Ruben Thiard. I'm General Secretary of UEGF, the French Union of Jewish Students, was created in 1944 after the Second War by resistance in south of France. Now, since 40 years, we're working against racism and anti-Semitism in France. We create in 84 SOS Racism, on one of the biggest anti-racism organization in France. Thank you, AGA, to welcome us here and to have the floor to speak. And I just want to thank David Kalfa and Katja from EGA working and welcome us. France. So, we are here to talk about a survey from the CRIF. So we are not the CRIF, we are UEGF. And we'll see the perception of anti-Semitism among students in France.
So, thank you, Ruben. He said everything about thanks for you. You heard me? Okay. So, we chose 3 reports to talk about the Jewish perception, the anti-Semitism perception in France. So the first, yes, I switch in French. Ok, bon, excusez-moi.
Well, in English.
I mean, it's French disease. Ok. L'un des premiers points notables, plus importants dans le rapport, c'est que 15% de la population française, en tout cas des sondés, expliquent qu'ils ont un juif dans l'entourage et c'est très perceptible dans les résultats des préjugés antisémites qu'ils peuvent avoir et des conséquences que ça a dans la vie quotidienne des juifs en France et notamment sur la jeunesse. Donc, concernant les préjugés, l'enquête révèle un niveau de préjugés. On constate que 42% des personnes interrogées de moins de 35 ans adhèrent à 6 préjugés antisémites ou plus. Et ce sont chez les sympathisants de l'extrême droite et les moins de 35 ans où cette donnée est le plus perceptible. 45% des moins de 35 ans affirment qu'on plus contre l'antisémitisme, plus contre le racisme contre l'antisémitisme. Mais c'est chez les moins de 35 ans qu'on considère que l'antisémitisme est beaucoup plus combattu que le racisme en France, à hauteur de 21%.
So in France, the stereotypes are really incremented in the person in France. So in 2004, we create a little program called Coexist, who are working to deconstruct prejudice and stereotype in middle school. So since 2004, every year we have 350 intervention in class to deconstruct stereotype. Okay, we're working with SOS Racism and with Lavage in one of the biggest student syndicates in France. We can saw in middle class some prejudice like Jewish are rich, Jewish are really community. Elise Fazles before, and thank Elise for all your words before. She talked about in the middle age the stereotype of Jewish are rich. People, students in middle school, think Jewish are rich, but we can saw stereotype kill, and we saw with Ilan Halimi, with the anti-Semitic friends, is not possible. So since we make the intervention in Coexist in middle school.
Concernant les...
Sorry for this.
Non, concernant comment on pourrait lutter efficacement contre l'antisémitisme en France chez les moins de 35 ans, 40% considèrent que c'est par le dialogue interreligieux. Nous, on répond plutôt le dialogue interculturel avec différentes actions au sein de l'UEJF.
So, we, in interface program, we make with different associations, like Jalons pour la paix. It's an association in the banlieue of Paris who are working to create some moments. We not are rabbi or imam, we are students, we are activists, and we try to talk with students. We not try to talk with an organization or association. We are in the street, in Paris, organize a Sukkot, we are explaining Sukkot to people who, these guys explain what is a tour to a Jewish community. So we try to make connection, a bond between communities. Like, do you know Abu Ghosh? Abu Ghosh is a small city in Israel, okay, close to Jerusalem, and it's known as the multicultural city in Israel, okay? Since 20 years, every trip we organize in Israel with students, with Jewish or non-Jewish, we are in Abu Ghosh with our partner like Betram and Bet Esther, who was working to put people together, like play football, an Arabic and Jewish team football, or dancing together, like all these projects.
On passe à un rapport qui a été commandé par l'UEJF en septembre dernier avec l'IFOP concernant la perception de la Shoah au sein de la jeunesse française entre 18 ans et 24 ans. Donc, ce qu'on a essayé de montrer ici, c'est l'adhésion à différentes affirmations de la Shoah, ce qui permet de comprendre comment est perçue la question de l'Holocauste au sein des universités françaises. L'un des points les plus importants ici, c'est que 75 on considère que 86% des jeunes de moins de 25 ans déclarent en avoir entendu parler, et que l'école joue un rôle efficace dans les premiers vecteurs d'information. Cependant, 33% des sondés estiment que l'enseignement de la Shoah met de côté l'enseignement d'autres génocides ou d'autres, comment dire, qu'on en parle trop en question à l'école, ce qui est fort problématique. Et cette proportion atteint 30% de ceux qui vivent dans les banlieues populaires en France. Nous, à Sciences Po et au sein des universités françaises, on organise des voyages de la mémoire, qui est un vecteur important d'information. On va chercher les responsables syndicaux politiques en Pologne c'est ce qu'on va faire d'ailleurs dans 2 semaines. On va emmener une délégation avec des jeunes représentants du Parti socialiste, d'Europe Écologie Les Verts, des Républicains, de syndicats étudiants et d'autres associations pour leur montrer concrètement sur le terrain ce qu'a été l'industrialisation de la mort et la Shoah. Sur un point important, et je vais parler de mon expérience plutôt à Sciences Po Paris. Je suis président depuis le mois de septembre au sein de cette université et on a pu faire remonter de nombreux problèmes. Donc là, ce qui est présenté, c'est les 2 rapports qu'on a montrés. Sur le campus de Menton, donc Sciences Po a un campus délocalisé qui est spécificité sur le Moyen-Orient, donc les problématiques liées à la haine d'Israël et à la haine d'Israël sont très perceptibles, beaucoup plus qu'à Paris, où des problèmes d'antisémitisme liés aux préjugés plus classiques sont perceptibles. Le rapport a été présenté au sein de l'administration, au sein d'un groupe de travail contre le racisme, les discriminations et l'antisémitisme, qui vient d'être créé. Ça a été une demande de l'UEJF. Moi, ça fait 5 ans que je suis au sein de cette université, et ça a été une demande que j'ai faite avec l'UEJF et SOS Racisme il y a 5 ans. Donc on voit les concrétisations maintenant et ce rapport a été pris en considération par l'administration, présenté au sein du conseil de l'institut, donc au sein des instances, pour qu'on puisse développer un programme efficace pour avoir une personne, un interlocuteur au sein de l'administration quand il y a des problèmes d'antisémitisme, mais une réaction plus efficace. Il y a de nombreux sujets qu'on traite. On est aussi sur un programme de valorisation culturelle, donc de tourner vers la médiation interculturelle, d'essayer de brasser large. Donc, les médiations interculturelles, Soukot expliqué à nos potes, qui a eu un certain succès avec des personnes de Sciences Po qui sont venues pour comprendre ce que c'était la culture juive. Parce que le rapport du CRIF, comme présenté précédemment, montre qu'il y a une méconnaissance du judaïsme très présente chez les jeunes en France, et ce qui nourrit la proportion est beaucoup plus importante dans les préjugés, dans les préjugés racistes, antisémites envers la communauté juive. Et ces actions-là permettent, en conséquence, de répondre à problème. À Sciences Po, il y a 5 ans, l'antisémitisme n'était pas à l'ordre du jour, c'était pas un sujet, on n'en parlait pas, et pourtant elle était bien présente pour les populations qui étaient les étudiantes et les étudiants qui étaient au sein de l'université. L'intérêt de s'engager, d'être présent au sein des instances en tant que membre de l'UEJF permet après de parler avec l'institution, de pouvoir développer des programmes et d'avoir des réponses. On a eu un hommage à David Gritz. David Gritz était un étudiant de Sciences Po qui est mort pendant la 2e intifada à l'université hébraïque de Jérusalem dans un attentat palestinien. Il y a eu un mutisme de l'administration pendant près de 20 ans. Des initiatives de la part de personnalités, d'étudiantes et des étudiants qui étaient aussi auprès de lui à ce moment-là, mais rien de la part de l'administration. Et c'est que maintenant qu'il y a eu aujourd'hui une plaque en son nom au sein du plus grand amphithéâtre de Sciences Po Paris, qui signifie un symbole de montrer qu'un étudiant n'est plus là, mort à cause de l'antisionisme. Finalement, enfin, la question du mutisme pendant une vingtaine d'années, c'est Israël, on n'en parle pas. Aujourd'hui, il y a un changement de paradigme parce qu'il y a un travail de plus de 5 ans au sein de Sciences Po pour qu'on puisse travailler sur ces sujets. Ça, c'est un premier point. Il y a un deuxième point aussi, les témoignages de la Shoah au sein de l'université, ce qui permet d'avoir, on a eu plus de 500 personnes un mardi soir pour écouter une rescapée de la Shoah. Et on a eu Mathias Wichra, qui est actuellement le président de Sciences Po, qui a utilisé comme exemple les actions de l'UEJF au sein de l'université pour, au mémorial de la Shoah, alors qu'il y a un partenariat de l'école avec le mémorial.
So, we talk about interface, stereotype, and remembrance. Let's continue to Israel. And in university in France, we saw in 1 year 2 facts. It's the same, far left and far right, rising in university now in France. We saw it was a little bit not a lot before, but since 1 year, we saw a rising from the far left and far right ambience in university. So we had a few tags in university, 39 to 45 Palestinian, and go back to Poland or Auschwitz. Some Nazis cross in the corridor in the university. It's hard for students. It's not easy to live like that in France because I'm French. And we saw Waffen in Assas, like the biggest university in France, in Paris. We saw a lot of tags, and the student is not easy for them. We try to do a lot, like the job of Kevin in Sciences Po, with all the trip in Israel, in Poland, and all the work. So maybe, yes, talk about...
Concernant le conflit israélo-palestinien, la question, l'importation haineuse du conflit israélo-palestinien, il y a 5 ans, c'était vraiment perceptible et c'était très présent au sein de Sciences Po. C'est-à-dire qu'il y a eu un blocus et un drapeau palestinien qui était mis sur la devanture de Sciences Po par les étudiants qui étaient à l'intérieur. C'était il y a 7 ans. Aujourd'hui, la situation est différente et on a des voyages en Israël avec les responsables syndicaux sur le même modèle que le voyage en Pologne.
Thank you all. If you have any question after that, let us know. Thank you.
Gentlemen, thank you. I'll tell you what we're going to do. First of all, it's an extremely important survey. And I thank you to my colleagues from France, David Kalfa and Katja Bayer, for raising it to our attention because we wouldn't have known about it. And above all, kol hakavod to you two for actually making it happen. So thank you very much. We'll take some questions towards the end. What I'm going to do, we've had a sort of close look at France. Guest now, we're going to take a pan out and look at the more general trends of online anti-Semitism currently affected in the world. It gives me great pleasure to introduce our next speaker, Mr. Tomer Aldulbi, who's the founder and executive director of Fighting Online Anti-Semitism. He also has a presentation which he's going to be running past you. And Tomer, thank you for joining us and looking forward to hearing what you have to say.
Is it working? Can you hear me? Yes. Hi. Good morning, everyone. Pleasure to be here with you today, and thank you very much for the EGA to invite us to this important conference. Estou muito feliz de ficar aqui, and I'm very proud to be here also because I'm Israeli and also Portuguese. So thank you for the Porto. Thank you for the Porto community to help me to be a Portuguese citizen and first time in Porto also. For that reason, my grandfather came from this area in Europe. And my grandmother, she came to Israel after the Holocaust. She's still with us. She's a Holocaust survivor. And this was the inspiration to establish the Israeli NGO fighting online anti-Semitism. It was established 3 years ago, and the main purpose is to remove anti-Semitism from online sphere, from various social media platforms. We were also by Google and Twitter during the first 2 years of the operation. We are still recognized by the social media platform as trusted flaggers. And of course, we work with other NGOs, including the one that you can see on the screen. And we are operating mostly in Israel and in Europe. So far, in the last 3 years, we have started to report anti-Semitism in various platforms. I'm wondering if there is any platform that you don't know on the screen, you can raise your hand. I'm sure some of the platforms you don't know, and we work on 10 different platforms, and we've reported more than 15 anti-Semitic posts, and we have trained about 400 volunteers. Most of them are Israeli students and young adults, and the rest are European students, mostly European young adults, in the countries, as you can see here, in Italy, in Switzerland, in Germany, and other countries also outside Europe. So just 2 quick questions before we start with the presentation. If you have encountered any offline attack, anti-Semitic, could you raise your hand if you want to share that? Okay, the numbers are good. I think, have you encountered any online anti-Semitism on the social media platform? Okay, so I think that's a good point to see that it was about of the double of the hands that were raised up, the double of the people that encounter online anti-Semitism, and that is why it's so important to talk about this online sphere. We're going to talk about the online sphere in reality, our annual report for 2022, and some concrete examples how monitoring anti-Semitic content can really protect us in Europe and in Israel and other places around the world. Some of the content might be difficult to watch. I don't think it is nothing that you've never seen before. And the main idea of online anti-Semitism in France, in other countries, in Europe, in the States, etc., is that we, the Jews, the Jewish communities, they control everything we can think about. So they control the American presidents, they control the United States, of course. And of course, we are also being charged for the 9/11 attack. Every year in the 9/11, you can see lots of anti-Semitic content going online. The COVID-19 is one of the big events, the rise in anti-Semitism. We still see this rise of anti-Semitism even today. And as you can see on the left side of the screen, we are again in charge of everything that is bad or good in this globe. So besides the COVID-19, that was a very important event for the fight against anti-Semitism, of course, every operation, every military operation, including the one that hopefully was just ended a few days ago, every other military operation, okay, I will wait for the presentation, but every other military operation in Israel, the guardian of the walls, especially in others, they also cause a great rise of anti-Semitism online. It's too early for questions, but we will wait for. Thank you. And the COVID-19 especially, as you all know, some of the people, some of the anti-Semitic opinions said that it was a Jewish hoax. Some of them said that it was invented by Jews to spread COVID-19 and to get a lot of money, also by the State of Israel. The direct link was the CEO of Pfizer, but they found other links to talk about anti-Semitism, the State of Israel, and Judaism. And as you can see, it was also offline, not just online. There were lots of manifestations, and also in New Zealand, by the way, in Israel, a few of them in Europe, in the United States. So when we talk about our findings for 2022, we see an increase of about 180 from 2021 to 2022. And perhaps you can think about the big event that is currently going on in Europe, which is the war. So the war in Ukraine caused another increase of online anti-Semitism. This was a survey that we conducted 1 year ago. So if you can see, it's a bit small, but 23rd, 24, when the war was, let's say, officially started, we've used AI to check with some hashtags, and we've seen that there was a rise of anti-Semitism online. This was conducted only in English, mostly in Twitter, but this is a very easy understanding that the war in Ukraine made an increase of anti-Semitism. And when we talk about this war and other events in Russian, in Russian, etc., the VK platform, which is a network mostly for Russian-speaking people, but not just, also for other languages. So the main conspiracy theory is that was, again, the Jews are responsible for the war in Ukraine. Those are just 2 examples from this network. And this network, perhaps you've never heard about it. It's very, very difficult to remove anything on this platform. When we talk about reporting content, as I said before, we monitor and report content on 10 different platforms. Twitter was found as the most anti-Semitic platform for 2022. And I would also say that there is a direct link to what's going on now with Elon Musk, even though they have a new CEO, which is maybe very good for Twitter. It was the most anti-Semitic content, and then VK, Facebook, Gab, and other platforms. Twitter was also the one with the lowest removal rate. Removed 100% of all the links that we have found. Instagram 52, Facebook 41, and YouTube 40. Facebook 48 and YouTube 41. And this slide is very important because this is only about classical anti-Semitism and Holocaust denial. This has nothing to do with anti-Israeli hate and anti-Zionism. I will show you in a second the difference. So TikTok has removed everything that was anti-Semitic and Holocaust denial. The way we work is that we talk with the platform. So we send the platform everything that our volunteers find. And because we are trusted flaggers, the platforms, they talk with us as an NGO, and they prefer to talk to NGOs rather to private people. So that's why TikTok has removed 100% of the content, and other platforms with about 50% removal rate. Of course, hopefully next year it will be a bit higher. The problem starts when we talk about anti-Israeli hate. And maybe you can see on the screen in the middle that about more than a third of the content that we found was anti-Israeli hate on all the platforms. But as you can see, only 5% were removed from all the platforms, compared to about 35% of Holocaust denial and classic anti-Semitism. And this is our biggest concern today, as it was discussed before about anti-Zionism and anti-Israeli hate. The platforms are not going to remove that. They are not going, in my opinion, to adopt the IHRA definition as well. They are doing some slight changes toward the proxy of Zionism. We had some discussions about Zionism with some of the platforms. But currently, they will say that this kind of hate against Israel is not hate speech. So they will not remove the content. That's why we can educate people to stop promoting this content online. So those examples are some of the examples that we succeeded to remove from Facebook, Instagram, and in other platforms. So this is related to classical anti-Semitism, conspiracy theories. So these photos, if we know how, we can remove that quite easily or efficiently, including those examples, again, related to the 9/11 and other conspiracy theories. And everything that is related to the Holocaust denial. And it's very important to know that the platforms, all the 5 I showed you before, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, etc., about 2.5 years ago, they implemented Holocaust denial in their policy. So today, if you find anything that is Holocaust denial on these platforms, you can report this content. It's supposed to be removed because now they consider hate denial as part of their own policy. Hopefully in 2 years, they will consider anti-Zionism as part of the policy, but it will take some time. So these kind of examples was able for us to remove, and also other Holocaust justification, as you can see on the screen in Arabic, in different other languages. This content was removed. Everything that's, yeah. And again, the problem starts with these kind of examples. This is most likely to stay online on this platform. And I had to put something because it was too aggressive, too violent. So these kind of examples, and we see them more and more today online. Very, very quickly, how to report content on different platforms. It's a very easy example. First of all, of course, you need to choose the platform that you are going to use. I would recommend use the platform that you are already active, and then all you need to do is search for the content, or if you already found the content, then you can. Searching the content would be quite easy if you know how to search that, or if you have specific topic. And reporting this is just an example from Facebook. I assume that we use Facebook or Twitter, but this is an example of Facebook. So it's very easy to report content. All you need to do is click in 3 points and then find support or report post. And then you should choose the category. So we spoke a lot about LGBT, hate speech, racism, etc. Everything will go under the hate speech policy. They don't have a specific one for anti-Semitism. So the anti-Semitism is not going to be written there or in any other platform. And then we should choose the hate speech policy and another topic, race, for example, and then we should ask them to report a post. Facebook has a bit more, let's say, a longer process. Then you should agree that this goes against the community guidelines of the platform and report the post. You should get a feedback in 24 hours since you reported the post. And this is also online. It's very easy. You can find it also, the different steps. So hashtags, we use keywords to report manually the content. We have developed some AI tools with Israeli IT companies that work with us. It will be done in a few months, but currently we focus on manually monitoring, and some of the keywords here are in Russian, German, Spanish, and there is a very long list of keywords and hashtags, and we use those for the volunteers. Of course, the anti-Semitic people, they know how to manipulate the social media platform. That's why it's like it's a game that maybe one day we will win, one day we will lose, but we know also how to manipulate them because we know the new hashtags that's going on online. So as you can see, they would use, instead of I or E or J, etc., they would use other numbers like 1488, which is related to Hitler, and etc. So they will use new hashtags in order to promote their anti-Semitic opinions. We have developed a unique reporting system for our volunteers, and that's also very important. And I think that is also something that is very important to say here, because as so many European Jewish communities, if we work together with the same system, with the same monitoring process, this is very easy, or it will be easier to report and to remove content. So this is a system we reported for our international and Israeli volunteers. And we also know automatically if the content was removed or not. It checks every day if the content is still online. And then as you can see, we get the answer if it was removed or not. And then we send everything that was not removed, we send it to the platform. And this is more or less just a few examples of the numbers that you can see on our system with different graphs for different periods of time. We asked the volunteers to also decide which language was the post reported and from which location. So as you can see, the purple is the European Union. The 61% is unknown, mostly on Twitter, but we always encourage the volunteers to check if he's based in Europe, so we can do something for the user or against the user. And another thing that we added last year was the question, do you believe the content you reported poses a threat? So as you can see, a third of the volunteers, they said yes. And the other third, they were not sure. And this was very important because we started to understand when they monitor anti-Semitism online, they find many things that are concrete threats to Jewish communities. But no one really knew about that before this question was added. And I would like to share with you just 3 quick examples about anti-Semitic content that was found online. And then it was, let's say, we prevented it to attack and we protected Jewish communities. This is an example, again, from the VK platform. About 2 years ago, we found a user that bought a weapon in the United States, in South Carolina. And then we talked with the VK, and it was very surprising, but they removed the user, and they also did their own investigation, and they removed many other users with the same intentions, with the same violent images to attack Jewish all across the United States. Quite recently, we have found a very worrying WhatsApp groups, neo-Nazis groups in Germany. This was on WhatsApp, and WhatsApp is owned by Meta, by Facebook. So this was on WhatsApp. This was a few months ago, and currently now we have forwarded this information to the Bavarian State Institute Against Anti-Semitism, because they are based in Germany, in Europe, and there are many things that we can do in order to file a complaint against those people. Another thing, this is just a quick example of the content that was found. We found about 30 groups that were really talking about how they're going to kill Jews all across Germany, with about 700 members. And the last example would be something that is related to terror. Even though we monitor anti-Semitism, we also find quite recently many Telegram groups that teach how to stab ADF soldiers and make homemade explosive. This was also during the last operation. 1 week ago, we found new WhatsApp or Telegram groups, but this is for a few months ago. And as you can see on the screen, how to make simple explosive with anything that you find at home. And another video that was on Telegram about this topic. And now we are waiting to talk with Telegram and to encourage Telegram to remove this group from their own platform. So before we will continue to the questions, to sum up, it is very important for me to say that we can remove anti-Semitism. It is possible to remove online anti-Semitism. We just need to know how. And it is even, let's say, easier or more possible in Europe, because in Europe, as it was said before, the DSA, the Code of Conduct, the higher definition, there are so many things that we can use in order to remove anti-Semitism. Of course, education is the key to preventing these offline and online attacks. And without leaving your homes, this is something you can do. You can report the content if we work together, and you also can to our website online, anything that you find, and please stay in touch and talk with us. Thank you very much.
Tomer, you're doing, wow, it's incredible. And it's like, I mean, there's no other word for it. It's a public service that you're doing privately. It's incredibly important. Thank you so much. I tell you what, we're just going to jump straight on. We'll take any questions that we have at the end. Tomer, once again, thank you very much. Now, we have a lot of information coming at you. It's important to keep going so we get an overall picture of where things are at. So it gives me great pleasure moving swiftly on. Canada via Scotland. Christina Jones, the Communications Associate for Camera in UK, also has some information she wants to share with our conference. Christina, thank you so much for joining us. The is right here, and I'll be right down there if you need me for anything. You may use whatever you like.
I believe my presentation, can you hear me now? Ooh. I do have a presentation, so hopefully it will be coming up. But I do want to say thank you to AGA for inviting me to speak here today. I appreciate it. Do excuse my accent. 1 minute it will sound North American, the next minute it will sound pure Scottish. So apologies in advance that I go back and forth. If you told me 10 years ago I would be here standing to you today talking about anti-Semitism in the traditional media, I wouldn't have believed you. I actually studied archaeology and history. By academic standards, I am actually an archaeologist, which is dealing with animal remains from archaeological context. So nowhere near what I'm discussing today. So it shows you sometimes you're nowhere to some extent. I wanted to briefly begin by explaining a little about us as an organization. CAMERA is the Committee for Accuracy in Middle East Reporting and Analysis. It was founded in 1982 at the beginning of the First Lebanon War. We are an international non-partisan media monitoring organization. We have offices in the UK, Israel, and in North America. Our goal is to ensure that media outlets are accurately portraying Israel and the conflict. And we have expanded also into highlighting anti-Semitism. CAMERA was established about a decade ago to monitor the British media. We do not just monitor the media for bias, but proactively engage with journalists and editors to challenge and misleading claims about Israel and the Jewish community. We undertake work in Spanish, English, Hebrew, and Arabic, and examples today I will be showing you. As you can see from the slide, here are the names of our wider CAMERA family, and we've also expanded onto university campuses where we have fellows also in North America, the UK, and Israel. Do feel free to ask me questions later on today. But to begin, I would want to hopefully, yes, there we go. I'm utilizing some examples that we have written upon as Camera UK from the Guardian newspaper that have taken place this year. The first is the recent depiction of Richard Sharp, the outgoing chairman of the BBC. We have since published an article about the ongoing anti-Semitism of Martin Rowson, the cartoonist responsible for this depiction. After a lot of public outrage, the image itself was removed, and they did cite that it did not meet editorial standards. The reason why Rowson actually tried to justify this, like all the imagery that he used, but as you can see, it's unacceptable. The second is from March this year. The words shown on screen come from an article titled Adelaide Writers' Week, written by journalist Cyan Kane. It highlights a line from a poem by Mohammed Al-Kurd, an Arab activist with a history of pro-terrorist and inflammatory remarks on social media. As we know, according to the international definition of anti-Semitism, using symbols and images associated with anti-Semitism, such as Jews killing Jesus or blood libel to characterize Israel or Israelis, is an example of anti-Semitism. The Guardian actually wrote the article in a manner of defense of his poem by noting his allegations are well documented effectively, legitimizing this blood libel. And the outlet still refuses to end the article to make it clear that they reject his anti-Semitic accusations. We've also contacted the Guardian to explain why this poem and this article further fuel anti-Semitism, and we've also called them out for failing to edit it. I now wish to move on to our Camera Arabic department. As part of the remit is to highlight and research about anti-Semitism within Arabic Western media outlets. As part of the department's recent focus has been on the BBC Arabic media service. Camera, in conjunction with the Jewish Chronicle, published an article about how the BBC Arabic media service has been playing songs that blatantly call for the blood of Jews and Israelis to be spilled during January and October last year. The words shown on screen, taken from this example, had over 36 million views before it was removed. Another example on the service, not highlighted on the screen, story of a militant knocking on his mother's door before he launched an attack that was broadcast in October. The most striking example was during May last year for the Palestinian oud player, Mr. Shuli, was invited to perform a folk song that addressed Palestinian militants, and he spoke to the presenter and laid out his reason for performing a song calling for violent resistance. After being contacted by the JC, the BBC removed the offending episodes from its social media accounts. However, the corporation to date has not admitted that guidelines were breached. The work that Camera has uncovered in conjunction with the JC on the BBC Arabic language service and its editorial failings has led the way for an announcement that there will be a cross-party, all-parliamentary inquiry into this year into the BBC regarding its biased reporting on Israel and continued anti-Semitism. The inquiry was announced the day after Ofcom's ruling that the BBC failed to observe its own editorial guidelines when reporting an anti-Semitic attack in London 2021. I'm just going to show a video further highlights the work of Camera Arabic and its recent expose into highlighting the anti-Semitism of 4 France 24 journalists. Is it going to play? There we go. Thank you. So that kind of gives you an idea of what we are doing as an organization. I do want to add that we have actually also written a dossier with the NGA. We've helped contribute to that as well regarding the BBC Arabic. Hopefully that will not play again. Can I have my presentation? Will it come back up? There we go. Perfect. Thank you so much. And before concluding, I did actually want to briefly touch upon campus media and issues that our students face on campus for being Zionists effectively. As you can see, the tweet behind me says that Zionists have no place on campus, which is also defamatory in itself. It also received quite a lot of tweets and shares as well. But it also just highlights the inability to speak about Israel on campus and what they are facing day to day, which I guess was also highlighted in our fellow colleagues from France as well. I'm also showing an image of Pi Media. It is a student newspaper of the University College of London. One of our fellows faced multiple delays in getting their article published for discussing Israel. The editors would demand edits of the student would make them, then the editors would continue demanding more to effectively delay this article that the student was writing on Israel. The editors also then told the student that camera on campus, that we as an organization did not have the right to republish anything that Pi Media publishes, which is something we tend to sometimes republish the students' articles that they do that are part of our fellowship onto our campus blog. The student had to challenge the editor, demonstrating that other students affiliated with off-campus organizations were not held to this arbitrary policy, thus highlighting a double standard. However, we found that an individual wrote an article that was anti-Israel was published within a week. This highlights that having a Zionist voice is not treated the same as an anti-Zion on campus, which equates to anti-Semitism. So, to conclude, as for emerging trends, we are seeing a rise in anti-Semitism in varying forms within media and on UK campuses. In certain instances, there is enough of a backlash for immediate action to be taken, such as the first image that I showed by The Guardian. However, sadly, this is not touching on the surface of anti-Semitism in the media that goes undisputed, like the example again from The Guardian from March. This is why organizations like Camera UK exists to combat such examples of anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism within the media. And until anti-Semitism is treated the same way as any other form of racism and prejudice, this will continue to permeate online and in day-to-day instances. Thank you.
Fantastic stuff, Christina. It's you've got something unique there, you know, monitoring the media. One of which surprises me just before we break for lunch. is that why it is that these private organizations, and we'll hear from others, or non-governmental organizations, are having to do this stuff instead of governments, and why governments aren't doing the due diligence. Perhaps this is a question for some of our government representatives here. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been a very, very busy morning. What we're going to do is we're going to move some of the program until we'll take our youth panel now after lunch. It is now coming up to 1:15. The lunch, for those of you not taking in the EGA labs, EGA labs first and foremost is in the Magnolia room in the hotel. For those of you having lunch on the gazebo, staff will guide you up there, and we shall see you in an hour from now to resume the conference. Bon appétit. Thank you very much.